The New York Islanders have a lot of restricted and unrestricted free agents to deal with this offseason, and we know how critical this offseason will be. Which players should the team prioritize? Who should be brought back? Who should be sent packing? We've got all that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Busy show ahead. Lots to talk about as we head into the Memorial Day weekend holiday. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you could send us an email at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR vs NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long. During the offseason, we'll have hirings, firings, free agency, trade rumors, the draft. If it's happening to the Islanders, we'll cover it here on Locked On Islanders, and it's great to talk a little Isles hockey with you, game time or anytime. We've discussed on the show, and everydayers are very aware of this, about how this is an important offseason for the Islanders, that this roster is getting a little bit older. There are no NHL ready prospects in the prospect pool who can step in and make an immediate big impact on this team. And there's not a lot of cap space. So lots of needs, but not easy to fill those needs. And one of the things that's going to happen this offseason, and we're still about 5 weeks away from the ultimate decision day, but you've got a bunch of restricted free agents and unrestricted free agents on this Islanders roster. And I think the question has to become, who do you prioritize with so little cap space? Who do you prioritize to try to keep? Who do you think should be let go? And, based on the limited amount of cap space, you got to make some tough choices over the course of the offseason. So I wanted to start with the the unrestricted free agents, guys who are either you re-sign them or they are gone. There's no way to sort of, there's no arbitration rights. There's no sign and trade. Either these guys are going to rejoin your roster and sign a new contract, or they're going to sign somewhere else, or some of them could retire. And we're looking at 5 right now, unrestricted free agents that I'm sort of focusing on primarily on this roster. And, I'm trying to concentrate on players who at least played a game in the NHL. So, if you want to talk to me about some guys who, Brian Pinho is an unrestricted free agent. Carson Kuhlman is an unrestricted free agent. I'm not going to prioritize them in this discussion. That is really more of a question for the Bridgeport Islanders. And those guys are not prospects. They're veterans who will give your AHL team some help if needed, and maybe for a game or two here or there if there are injuries on the NHL roster. Those are guys you could bring in to fill in for a game or two. But as far as the unrestricted free agents are concerned, the guy I would bring back first and foremost is got to be Mike Riley. And, Riley, again, I'm not talking about a guy who I think is going to play a huge role on the team. To me, you re-sign Mike Riley to a team-friendly 1 or 2 year deal, and you have to figure out, is he going to be your third pair defenseman on the left side, or is he going to be your seventh defenseman? And I think you sign him to a 1 year deal or a 2 year deal at around $1 million a year and go from there if you want to bring him back. And to me, you let Riley battle with Samuel Bolduc for that third pair spot on the left side. Most likely that's opposite, of Scott Mayfield. And whichever one wins the job, they are your third pair, and then you have your seventh defenseman would be the guy who doesn't win the job. Ideally, I think that's the way to go. I think Riley proved himself over the course of the season after the Islanders claimed him on waivers. I think he did a really solid job, and I think that he will be again, somebody who can help the team be on that second power play unit. His strength is carrying the puck. The only other Islanders defenseman who really excels in that area among the top 6 is Noah Dobson. So to me, I get Riley as the top priority among the unrestricted free agents. Now, after that, you have the other 2 guys who I think a lot of people have mixed emotions about, and that's Cal Clutterbuck and Matt Martin. And look, we know there is an age thing along with Clutterbuck 36, Martin 35. These guys play a physical style. They are on a team that, needs to get younger, faster, and more skilled. To me, even though these 2 players have been great Islanders for a long, long time, I would say it's time to move on, that you can get players who can fill in on the fourth line for less money and who can add a little more speed and a little more juice, even if they have a little less experience. But I know Lou Lamoriello. And his approach, I'm not saying I know him personally, but I'm saying I know Lou's approach to building a team. And it would not shock me if Lou decided to bring back either Cal Clutterbuck or Matt Martin or both. Now, both players have indicated they do not plan on retiring this offseason. I think it would be a mistake to bring them back. Again, not that you're going to save a lot of cap space by bringing, by moving on from them and inserting, some younger, faster guys in, whether you put Julien Gauthier on the fourth line, Kyle McLean. And again, it'll also depend on who else you're bringing in this offseason. But overall, I would have to think it's time to move on. But I don't necessarily think that that's what Lou Lamoriello will do. Another unrestricted free agent, Robert Bortuzzo. I think Bortuzzo, I liked what he brought to the table. He's a right shot defenseman. He's also getting up there in age, in his mid-30s. I wouldn't, especially if Riley comes back, I would not be eager to sign Bortuzzo. The only way I think about signing Robert Bortuzzo is if Scott Mayfield has complications, is not ready to start the season, and therefore you're lacking a right shot defenseman who could step in. And, even under contract right now, the other right shot defensemen, you have Grant Hutton, who is not considered a prospect at 28. You have Aiden Fulp, who is not considered a big-time prospect at 24. And then Paul LeDoux is an unrestricted free agent. So overall, in my mind, if Mayfield is relatively healthy, I'm not going out of my way to re-sign Bortuzzo. Then you have two other defensemen who you have to sort of figure out what to do with them. One of them is Sebastian Aho. He is an unrestricted free agent. Aho is 28. He, to me, would be, if he comes back, probably, your second extra left shot defenseman behind either Bolduc or, if he comes back, Riley. I like Sebastian Aho. He's a good effort guy, but I don't think he's ever going to be more than what he is right now in the NHL. And ideally, to me, he's a seventh defenseman. He is smart with the puck, but his lack of size makes him a liability in his own zone. And I just don't see him rising above being a seventh defenseman. I think you can, I'd rather bring back Riley than Aho. If Riley won't come back or can't come back, maybe you sign Aho to be that seventh guy. But I would put him lower on the priority list. And then Robin Salo, also a left-handed defenseman, also an unrestricted free agent, mainly because he did not play enough games by the age of 25. I don't think Robin Salo is in this team's plans anymore. If they re-sign him, I think he's headed to Bridgeport. So those are the unrestricted free agents on the roster right now. And the question then becomes, to me, the only one you really, really have to keep or want to keep is Riley. I could see Lou Lamoriello wanting to keep either Martin or Clutter or both. And, the rest of them, I think it's time to move on. I think it's time to move on from Martin and Clutter also, even though they've both been great Islanders over the course of their careers. But that's where we stand as of now with the unrestricted free agents. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We will continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders with Pierre Engvall. We'll talk about the restricted free agents. And, oh, yes, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a young current Islander from Sweden. Let's see if you can guess who that is. I think that's a pretty easy one. We've got all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills. Indeed is a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed Data US. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked-on. Offer good only for a limited time. Claim your $75 job credit now at Indeed.com/locked-on. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7. Covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So we're going to continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders from last season. We break down their season, their role. We talk about whether they were a disappointment or a pleasant surprise, or whether they met expectations or not. And then we look ahead to what their role is likely to be as of now on the Islanders going forward. Yesterday, we talked about Scott Mayfield. The day before, Anders Lee. Everydayers, you know that already. But again, we've already done about 10 of these. So you can head back over the last couple of weeks and see the breakdown of the players that we've already discussed. And we've got a lot more to come. Today, it's Pierre Engvall. And, look, no way around it. This was a disappointing season for Engvall. No question about that. The Swede turning 27 this year. He'll turn 28 in exactly 1 week, actually. Originally a 7th-round pick of the Maple Leafs, played in 74 games for the Islanders this year. Only 10 goals, 28 points. He was a +4 and had 18 penalty minutes, averaged 15 minutes and 20 seconds of ice time. Here's the thing. You look at those numbers. 10 goals, 28 points in 74 games. A year ago, in his brief stint with the Islanders, he had 5 goals and 9 points in 18 games. So that's about a 41-point pace if you extrapolate it out to 82 games. This year, he was really down 13 points, more or less 12, maybe because he missed 8 games. From that pace, the goal scoring down significantly. And here's a guy who started the season in the top 6. He was on your second line. And, it was Nelson, Engvall, and Palmieri that carried the Islanders' offense late last year during the stretch drive and into the playoffs in 2023. But this year, that chemistry, that magic that they showed a year ago was really not there anymore. And again, he is realistically, Engvall has some assets. He has size at 6'5", 219. But the size doesn't mean he has physicality. Engvall this year had only 28 hits in 74 games. He is not a physical hockey player. And look, you don't have to be a physical hockey player to be successful in the NHL, although most of the time you do want to have a certain element of physicality to your game. But if you're not physical, you have to make up for it in some way. And, the size for Pierre Engvall gives him a reach advantage, but it doesn't really add up to, if the puck is in the corner or along the boards, Pierre Engvall is the guy I want on the ice battling for that puck, because realistically, he's not. And, he just did not have the kind of season that justifies him being in the top 6. He had, from December 9th to January 27th, he had exactly 1 point. That, even for a bottom 6 forward, is not what you want. But overall, for a top 6 forward, that is really bad. And Lou Lamoriello, I think, made a mistake in signing Pierre Engvall to a 7-year deal. Yes, the $3 million cap hit, if he was to be a top 6 forward, would have been really reasonable. Really, really reasonable. But he has to produce like a top 6 forward, and he just didn't. He hasn't been in the top 6 throughout his NHL career, except for his time late last year and early this year with the Islanders. He is on a good offensive hockey team, even on an average offensive hockey team. He's a 3rd-line guy. His playing style doesn't really fit the 4th line, so I think he is a 3rd-line guy at best. And to sign him for 7 years, that I think was a big mistake. The $3 million a year salary is a little over the production he's giving you right now, but I think he's capable in an ideal situation of being more productive than he was. But 7 years for any third line player is a reach. Now, one of the reasons his production went down this year, without question, is his shooting percentage was down. When he was with the Islanders last year, he had a 16.1% shooting percentage. Now, again, that was in 18 regular season games. That is, small sample size. But for his career, his shooting percentage is 10.5, roughly. And that was including this year's 7.8 shooting percentage performance. If he can get it back up to 10.5, 11%, you might be able to get 13, 14 goals from him over the course of a season. But again, those are not top 6 numbers. And it is something that I think Lou Lamoriello just made a mistake. If he comes back, I hope we're looking at a third line role for Pierre Engvall at best. He even had significant time on the second power play unit this year. How does that, fit into everything? It shouldn't. So the numbers are disappointing. I think he's back. He's got to look to find his game. And, again, if he's not physical, whether it's speed or defense or checking or, positional play, you got to bring something else to the table. Engvall doesn't bring enough on a consistent basis. I hope if he's back, he is on the third line. And yes, he does have a modified no trade clause that the Islanders have to figure out or work around if they want to deal him. We have got more to get to on today's show. We'll talk about the restricted free agents, and there are at least 4 that we need to discuss. We'll talk about that, plus our Islanders birthday of the day, and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Islander fans, use your knowledge of the NHL to bet on the Stanley Cup playoffs. You want to bet on the 2 conference final series. You want to pick the Panthers over the Rangers. You want to bet on Edmonton, Dallas. You want to bet on who's going to win the Conn Smythe, who's going to win the Stanley Cup. It's all there, and check out the latest odds on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, restricted free agents, the Islanders have 4 that need to be looked at. And I think it's pretty easy. The top 3, I think all 4 of these are pretty cut and dry as far as what the Islanders want to do, what they'll be able to do, what they're willing to do. That remains to be seen. But the big RFAs, Simon Holmstrom is a restricted free agent. I don't see any reason. He does not have arbitration rights. I realistically see him signing another 1 or 2 year, maybe a little bridge deal to get him through to unrestricted free agency or at least arbitration rights. He's on your third line. He's got speed. He's good on the penalty kill. He knows what to do positionally on defense. Holmstrom going to be back, barring a decision to go back to Europe. I think the Islanders want him back. I think he wants to be back. Not going to be all that controversial. Next up on the list, Kyle McLean. McLean, I think, proved his mettle. He has arbitration rights as a restricted free agent. I mean, whether or not his father is back behind the bench as an assistant coach, I think the Islanders want Kyle McLean. I think he can play either center or wing on your fourth line. He hustles. He's smart. He is kind of a younger version of Casey Cizikas. I would like to see McLean back, and I think the Islanders will bring him back and avoid, hopefully, arbitration. That would be the only complication I could see. The next player who also has arbitration rights as a restricted free agent is Ruslan Ishkakov. And I mean, to me, it's not a question of whether the Islanders want him back or not. It's a question of whether or not Ishkakov feels like he can get a fair shake and a chance to play in the NHL regularly with the Islanders. If not, he can go back to the KHL. He's Russian, obviously. That's one possibility. The Islanders could sign him and trade him. They could trade his arbitration rights and his, rights as a restricted free agent. If I'm Ishkakov, I don't think I want to come back to this team. But boy, the Islanders could use his speed and skill. The question is whether or not Lou Lamoriello, A, thinks he's too small to play in the NHL. He's only played one regular season game and one playoff game. Didn't play a lot of minutes in either. Or, whether or not he fits into Patrick Waugh's system. I think he can. But, you got to ask Waugh that. I would like him to return. I would like to see him get a realistic chance to play regular minutes. But again, I don't necessarily know that Lou Lamoriello wants to do that. And I don't know that Ishkakov wants to stay on the island. And then the last player is Oliver Wahlstrom. He also has arbitration rights. Wally did not seem to find a place in the lineup this year. I hope the knee is, fully healed now and that he's getting back to himself. I think this is a situation where both the player and the team would benefit from Wally having a change of scenery. But, stranger things have happened. I think the Islanders move on from him. He does have the arbitration rights. We'll see what happens with Oliver Wahlstrom, but I don't think it helps him to be with the Islanders right now, and I don't think that the Islanders have a place in the lineup for him. Now, that could change depending on who's traded, who's signed, all of that, but I think we've seen the last, for now, of Oliver Wahlstrom in the Islanders organization. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day, and today is the 23rd birthday for current Islanders winger Simon Holmstrom, the Swedish native, first-round pick by the Islanders in 2019, still their most recent first-round pick, had a career-high 15 goals and 25 points in 75 games with the Islanders. This year was a +2, 5 of his goals coming shorthanded. Holmstrom kind of faded late in the season after a solid start. Still trying to find his consistency. I've seen flashes of offense from him, but not enough consistency. I think he needs to get his confidence up because I think he's capable of getting to that 20-goal mark if his confidence rises. We go back and look at one of his better games as an Islander. How about this year? April 17th, 2024 season finale for the Islanders at the UBS Arena against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And in this game, it's Alex Nedeljkovic in goal for the Penguins, Ilya Sorokin in goal for the Islanders, and Simon Holmstrom, our Islanders' birthday of the day, assists on a first period goal by Brock Nelson to open the scoring. And then in the third period, scores the game-winning goal and the last goal for the Islanders during the regular season this year. Kyle McLean had the only assist. Islanders beat the Penguins 5-4. Holmstrom in this game, a goal and an assist. He was a 2. And of course, as I mentioned, he had the game winner, scored on his only shot, and played 1549 in this contest. So happy birthday to Simon Holmstrom. Looking forward to seeing what he can do with the Islanders as he matures and hopefully takes on a bigger role on the team. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers will be back Monday. Yes, it's a holiday, but we will have a show. So we'll be back Monday as we continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders season, and we will be talking a little Brock Nelson on Monday. So make sure you join us for that. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the holiday. And of course, please do remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for the freedom of our country. We'll be back Monday. Have a great weekend. And of course, let's go Islanders.